Welcome everyone back to my C# Basics tutorial, and we're on number 6 now. Last time we created a class, or rather a series of classes, for all the different scenes that we could encounter so that we can create a branching narrative that doesn't require an immense amount of if statements and copying and pasting. We want something that's clean, not messy, and you can notice how this code here, which we are replacing, got replaced by these two lines. So obviously there's setup options, but these will all look about the same. So the only thing that really ends up changing realistically in the code is these two methods for calling the next scene, and that gets rid of all this code here. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to alter something. This list here, we're going to actually say new option, and then do these open and close brackets. The reason we're going to do open and close brackets is so we can define all the things inside of an array, and then say dot to list. Now, differences between a list and array, well, they tend to be relatively similar in C#. It has to do with stuff like, well, I don't want to get too distracted here, but basically with an array you set, generally speaking, a length, and you have a specific index, and it's you don't add and remove in the same way and whatnot. So it's a little bit more rigid, I guess, but it's not that important. This is not something that is going to fundamentally impact our program in any way right now. So you can see there's this little open and close parentheses, which is saying we're going to define some, well, we don't have to, but we're going to define some stuff in here. And we are already defining stuff. So what we're going to do is Control X to remove this from that side. And then we're going to put it down here. And you might be thinking, well, why the hell are we doing that? And the answer is because we want more than one scene, and we want to be able to get rid of this extra thing where we added into the options, because we're going to be adding in the next scene that comes along, so it can just play one to the next, and we never have to worry about it. Okay. Now we say new here. Why? Because we're adding a new option. Actually, we can just remove this part because we already have new option there. Okay, new option. As you can see, we have our option variables here, and then I've replaced that semicolon, which used to be a semicolon, with a comma, because there's going to be another one that we're adding in here, and you don't put semicolons inside of an array definition. You just don't do it. So, all right. So now we want to add a new option, because right now the only option is trying to climb a tree, and obviously that did not work out for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to say over here, option 2, and see, we can just copy and paste, and bam, we have a new option. Instead of climb a tree, we'll say walk to the north. I think that was similar to whatever we had earlier. Okay, so options. Okay, so we have to decide what happens. So now it's interesting idea that perhaps we have not attempted to do anything really, we're just walking. So it's possible that all we need to do here is announce that we've arrived somewhere. And if we want to announce that we've arrived somewhere, we can say something like, you come to the edge of a river. All right. Whatever. We don't really need these exclamation parts. We can just do a period there, period there. It's not that exciting. Okay, and then answer. Let's see. Do we need an answer for this? Probably not. Probably what we need to do is go on to the next scene. So we're going to remove answer from this. All right. And then what we want to do is we want to change the code so that it'll just continue. So instead of asking for answer is going to be 2, because obviously this is option. But what I'm trying to say is, I got this confused. What I'm trying to say is we want this continue to the next scene, and this one to go back to the previous scene, because whatever you did didn't really work. So it's actually not answer that I need to be talking about. It's essentially when we call update player, our update player function returns a scene, and we need that to be the next scene that we call. And then we need to debug it and make sure that things are going properly. But in order to know what scene needs to be called, it needs to be assigned. Now, right now we have it set here as next scene. However, probably what's going to happen is instead of it being one scene for each scene, we need a scene for every option instead. What we need to do is essentially either an effect or an option. We need to say, and I think it's effect because that's where you're choosing. So we'll say here is public scene equals null. Let's go ahead and move this up here. I like to have my classes and my variables separate. I don't know, that's just sort of something that I like to do. And essentially what we want to do here is say, okay, so when that option is selected in update player, we need to return this next scene variable, but it doesn't need to be one for this. Like, it doesn't need to be in here. It can just be local to update player things. So we can go scene, next scene. And then what we can say is say in here, next scene equals opt.effect.next scene. And then we'll return next scene. Okay. So what happens here? Well, essentially, we go and we call this display options. It shows the options. We update the player, and this line of code here returns to us the next scene that needs to be displayed. So what needs to happen here is we need to say probably some sort of a loop so we can go through all of them. So probably what we'll do here is put a while loop and do while, and then we need a scene value to sort of store whether or not we're going to continue. And then we'll call it, let's see, we'll put it up here next to first scene, and we'll say scene current scene equals new scene. And we'll say in here, while current scene is not equal to null. Oops, I didn't mean to hit that slash button, I meant to hit backspace. Okay, well actually it was enter. Okay, current scene is not equal to null. Then what we'll do is we'll say in here, we'll remove that from there and put it in here. And instead of saying that this is first scene, we'll say it's current scene. So the current scene dot display options, and then current scene update player. And since this is returning value, we'll say current scene equals current scene. Okay. And then what we need to do is above here, we need to start it as first scene. So current scene equals first scene. And that means that at the very beginning, it'll start out as this scene that we have laid out here. Okay. Now, inside this definition where you climb a tree, inside that effect, we need to add another variable. We can just do it under player here. We say it should be next scene equals, and then what we want to do is say it's equal to first scene, because if you fall and break your neck, you start over in this scene. So this one equals first scene, and then that is the end of that one. And then we'll test this really quick here. I'm expecting to see a few errors or something like that. So what we want to do is just make sure that this first option goes back to that scene. put in our name, says my answer. Okay, I'm going to climb a tree. It says you slip and fall and break your neck. Name, this is an update of the status, so Brandon the Risky. I got 10 experience, I lost 2 health. Then you find yourself in a forest again. So this is starting to, this will start filling up, where if I keep doing this, well, now we have 20 experience, but we only have 6 health. We keep doing that. Eventually we're at 0 health. Okay, but there's a problem. When you're at 0 health, you want it to end. You don't want it to keep going, because then you can get negative. And this update health thing is supposed to say you have died, but that didn't happen, and that's because inside of here, where we're doing this sort of addition down here, we have health plus equals instead of update health. So what we need to do is say player.update health, and then we need to have an amount, and that amount needs to be opt.effect.player.health. Okay, now we can run it. We can say Brandon. All right, and then we can go for option 1 again. 8 HP, 6 HP, 4 HP, 2 HP, and 0 HP. And then it says you have died here. So, but the problem is it'll still let us go down and get to negative. And it'll still say you've died, but we're still climbing trees. And this is sort of problematic. So what we want to do is have it so that this update health thing can return a value as to whether or not you died or not, so that we can check it. So we'll change this to bool. And then if health is less than 0, return false, as in you're dead. Else return true, as in you're not dead. And then what we can do in here is say player update health, and then what we probably want to do is have show stats. Actually, you know what? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. What we want to do is say if player health. So this is if it ends up being true. So when you see this statement, what it's essentially saying is there's a value to this statement here, and that's a true or false statement because we changed it to return to us true or false. And so if it's true, code in here will execute. Else, code in here will execute. So what we want to do is grab this and say, all right, if it executed properly, that means you're still alive. This will show up. If it didn't execute properly and you're dead, this part will show up. And in this part, we're going to say next scene equals null, and then we'll say break. And what that'll do is, as you can see up here, we have while current scene is not equal to null. And then the question as to whether you want to restart shows up. So all we got to do is start this. Say Brandon, choose 1. We're now at 8 HP, 1, 6, 4, 2, 0. Okay, so now when it shows 0, so I said my answer, says you have died. That's what it says. Now we could go back here and we could add in some stuff into that this statement so that it wasn't just you have died. What we could do is we could add this opt.text.effect in here. Oops, I gotta stop it first. And then what we can do is try this again and keep doing this. Okay, you've died, you slip and fall and break your neck. Now it's interesting because this happens afterwards. and it happens in both. So you go, well, do we really need it to be in both here, inside of this statement? Maybe we should just make it the first statement. So what we'll do is we'll remove this. Oops, I gotta stop it again. We'll remove this from both of here, and we'll do Control X here so we can just copy and paste it. And we'll put it above player, and player experience also needs to be inside this update health statement. We just forgot to add it. And that way, it will always write out the effect, the text for that effect, before we do any of this calculation. That way it's not out of order, and plus we don't have to do it twice, we just have to do it once. So it's more efficient for the code. We're going to try this again. Choose 1, we're on 2 HP, we're going to die. Now it says, you slip and fall and break your neck before it announces that you've died. And then it says, would you like to restart? And we say yes. And then it says, what is your name? Brandon. Okay. And now we're back to square one. Now if we choose 2, I don't think I have a thing assigned, so it'll just say, you've died. Would you like to restart? Clearly, that's not precisely what we want to happen. So now for the next option. The next option, when you come to the edge of a river, we need to add in the next scene part. So here we'll say next scene equals, and then we go, well, what next scene do we need? And so we could say, well, actually, we need a whole nother scene for us to have. So we'll go ahead and copy and paste this scene here, and we'll say this is going to be second scene. And then we say, okay, next scene will be second scene. All right. But second scene is empty. It doesn't have anything in it. So what we want to do here is we can just go and copy sort of this value here, and we'll say second scene instead of first scene here. And we'll say in fact, I'm going to move this text from there to here, because this is the opening of the next scene. So this will actually say something like, you walk north. Something really unimportant. And inside of here, obviously, you don't lose health, so we leave this at 0. Let's say because you didn't do something risky, you only get 5 experience, and you don't get the title, you don't get the name. So that's another thing that we can add when you walk north. All right. So come to the edge of a river. What do you do? Okay. Well, now we need some options. So we need to decide what you're allowed to try and do here. Okay. So option 1. Attempt to cross the river. Okay. And the answer is, let's see. Should something bad happen or should something good happen? Well, you're attempting to cross the river, so something bad should happen. You step on a sharp rock, but make it to the other side. Cool. So -1 health. Experience 10. And we'll say, I don't know if we need another title, but we can just say the poked, because you get poked by a rock. Or the the skewered. I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave this empty for now, because I can't think of anything particularly interesting there. And then the next scene would be obviously something different, but we'll put it as null for now because we don't have it created yet. And then the next option is option 2. walk down, or let's see, walk by the bank of the river and see where it goes. Okay. You walk along the river. And once again, null for here because, well, nothing, we don't have a scene created for what happens after that. Experience is still 5 because you're doing something not risky. Health stays at 0, nothing happens here. Okay, good. This needs to be from first scene options, needs to be second scene options. And let's test it out. I'm expecting some sort of error, but we're gonna just see what happens. Okay, Brandon. Okay, so let's try to climb a tree. Oh no, I slip and fall. I get a new title. My health is 8. Now, what do I do? So, let's see, you find yourself in a forest. Well, we're going to try walking north now. Okay, you come to the edge of a river. So it says, okay, you walk north, you have 8 HP, you're Brandon the Risky, you now have 15 experience and 8 health. Come to the edge of the river, what do? We're going to say, walk alongside the bank. Okay, these things increase slightly, HP stays the same. We could remove this you have 8 HP because we have health 8 here. Not that important. And then, of course, now we had returned null, as you can see. Instead of saying another scene, we just have null here. You just have a null for that one, so either one that you would do would turn out sort of like that. And then it says, would you like to restart? And we say yes, and then it restarts. Okay, well that's a pretty good place to stop for now. Now you're starting to get the idea of how we're going to build out a branching pathway of different options so that you can create your own custom storyteller app, create your own story, your own options, your own consequences, your own rewards. We don't have like an inventory or anything added yet, but I'm sure that can get added later. At the moment, you can essentially, if you've been following along, just copy and paste these different sections here and make your own story. We're actually at that point now, so that's pretty awesome. All right, well, I will see you guys in the next tutorial, so let me know what you think about this one, and I'll see you all later. Bye.